for joining us. Today, Erica and I are going to be demonstrating her Courvoisier recipe, and I'm going to have you explain what that is.
So I created a Courvoisier glazed pork chop with a forest mushroom quinoa. Today we're going to show you how to execute the dish. 3 components to the dish. There's the Courvoisier glaze that we're going to execute, the pork chop, and then the forest quinoa mushroom. So Catherine's going to start by putting together the Courvoisier glaze. We're going to start with half a cup of orange marmalade, half a cup of Courvoisier VSOP, as well as a tablespoon of ginger. You want to put all of that into the pot and allow it to simmer together. So you want to do this on a relatively low heat. You don't want to scorch the sauce. Alright, so the next component that we're going to go into is the chop. Now this is a center cut pork chop. I have asked for the butcher to have the bone attached, and I've just asked him to French it. You can do this at home if you know how. Your butcher would be more than obliged to do it for you, however. So what we're going to do is we're going to season this with a generous amount of salt and pepper. Make sure you season on both sides all the time. And Catherine has started by getting a pan on the heat with a generous amount of olive oil. It's very important that when you're searing meat that you allow the pan to come up to temperature. That's going to help with the caramelization process of the meat. The oven has been preheated to 375, and the pan, as you can see, is nice and hot. Catherine tested it just by hovering her hand over top to make sure that we have a decent heat on it. The next step is dropping the pork chops in. Now make sure that you drop them away from you as to not splatter any oil on yourself. And hear that sizzle? That's what you want to hear. So simply place the chops in the pan and leave them alone. If you move them around, you're not going to get the caramelization and the crust that we're looking for. This will take approximately 5 minutes. I'd say 3 to 5 minutes on each side. So the pork chop has had enough time to caramelize. As Catherine flips it, you'll be able to see that golden brown color. That's exactly what you're looking for. So once you've flipped both of the tops, you're going to go ahead and add some of our Courvoisier glaze before we put it in the oven. Okay. I want you to observe the gentle simmer of the glaze. This is exactly what you're looking for in order to have it reduce to the consistency that you want. So once the chops have been flipped, you're going to go ahead and add approximately 2 teaspoons of glaze to the top of the chop before putting them in the oven. So the glaze has been applied. We're simply going to put it into a 375-degree oven. Alright, so the next component in our dish is the forest mushroom quinoa. We have a variety of mushrooms here. Just a fresh cremini mushroom. And then we've also got some dried mushrooms that I've rehydrated. So as you can see, something beautiful like this is a lobster mushroom. It's going to look amazing in your dish as well as give it some complexity. We also have some dried oyster mushrooms in here and some porcinis. So you're going to want to let this soak for about 10 minutes and then just take some of the water out. Some of the water is going to add moisture to the quinoa when you mix it in, and that's what you want. So Catherine's going to start by adding some butter and olive oil to the pan. Once it comes up to temperature, she's going to add the shallots. So in order to extrude as much flavor as possible, Catherine's going to sweat the shallots a little bit before we go ahead and add the mushrooms. So she'll put those in. The shallots are going to become very nice and aromatic. And that's when you know that it's time to go ahead and add your mushrooms. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and add the fresh mushrooms. Make sure you get all of them in there. Stir that around a little bit. It's also really important at this point to add a little bit of seasoning. So some salt and pepper will go in. We just want these to get a nice little golden coloring on them before we go ahead and add the dried mushrooms. Now that the mushrooms have had some time to sweat, we're going to go ahead and add the rehydrated mushrooms. At this point, we're also going to add some thyme. Let those flavors blend together for a few moments. We're going to turn the heat down a little bit, and we're going to go ahead and add the quinoa. This is about a cup of cooked quinoa. Now, quinoa is an amazing grain. I use it very frequently, so I tend to cook a couple of cups of it, leave it in my fridge so that I have it throughout the week to do salads or stir fries, whatever you might want to do. I have simply cooked this by adding 2 cups of water to 1 cup of quinoa, simmered it for 15 minutes with the lid on, and then I have put it under cold water to strain it. You don't want this dish becoming too starchy, which is why it's really important to strain it in cold water before you use it.
And it's gluten-free.
Totally gluten-free. Alright, so Catherine's going to mix that in together. Of course, always seasoning as you go. And at this point, we're going to help it out by adding half of a freshly squeezed orange. So the juice of half of a freshly squeezed orange. Once this is warmed through, we're simply going to add some green onions. You can use chives. I happen to have green onions in the fridge, so that's what we're using today. So I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle this in while she's stirring. I mean, this adds some great dimension. It's going to complement the shallot flavor as well as great color. Let's take a closer look at the quinoa. I want you to note how the green onion really adds some contrast to the dish, as well as how the orange juice has worked well to bring everything together. So we just want to give you a visual of what the buttered vegetables look like after being blanched or simply tossed in the butter and then put on the plate at the end. Alright, so now all of the elements are cooked. We're going to go ahead and plate this dish. Make sure that you put your plates in the oven for a little bit to warm them up. You don't want to serve hot food on a cold plate. Start by taking your quinoa. You want to get a nice heat right in the center of the plate. And while you're doing this, you want to focus on building the quinoa up. It's going to make a big difference because you're going to allow your pork chop to rest right against this. So just add little bits at a time, getting it nice and high. So the next step is to go ahead and put your pork chop on. Grab a pair of tongs for this. So you're going to want the bone to stick up in the air. Take the chop and just rest it right on your quinoa. Perfect. So after the chop is placed, you're going to go ahead and add a little bit more of that beautiful Courvoisier glaze that you've made. I like to take a spoonful, start right at the top, just let it drizzle right down. Add a couple of these. It's going to drizzle right onto the plate. Just going to make it look beautiful. Alright, we're almost done. We're just going to take some buttered vegetables. So Catherine has already blanched these off. Sauteed them in a little bit of butter. We want to go with color variety, so we've used baby carrots and some green beans. So this is easiest done with your hands because these can be finicky sometimes. Place them right above the bone. Let them rest on there. Take a couple of green beans.
Now you can turn it over.
So the last thing that you need to do always, clean your plate. We had a little bit of butter drip on the side here, so you definitely want to clean that off. Turn the plate around. You're going to want to present it to your guests just like that. So when you're taking it to your guests on the table, obviously make sure that the chop is front facing. Place it down and allow them to enjoy.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope that you're able to wow your guests with this amazing meal over the holiday season.
Bye.